This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment coach for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now here is today's episode. Episode 89. Before I dive into today's episode, if you haven't heard already, Stepping into Soul, Shredding Labels and Limitations is now open for registration. This is for 12 women, and Tamara, Powell, and I have created a very sacred space for these women to step into this, where you can learn how to actually step more into the confidence that you have that is brewing within inside of you. You can say no with ease and kindness. You can really end that hide and seek dance that you've been playing in being visible, not only in your business, but also in your personal life. And it's time to pivot from being overwhelmed and exhausted more often than not. We created this hybrid program where you can create your own specific goals, and we've got prompts for you to do, whether it's in your business, it's your spiritual life, it's your relationships, health, whatever it may be. We've got prompts for you to do it. And then over the 12 weeks, which the group itself starts on April 5th, it ends on July 3rd, we've got other modules to take you even deeper, to explore why you do what you do and how to really end the cycles that aren't working for you. This sounds like something you want and you've been looking for, then head over to steppingintosoul.com to find out more. Well, welcome, sisters. All right, here is conversation number 3 with my friend Tamara Powell. In episode 81, we discussed why we built our businesses and how we were breaking through a lot of limiting beliefs that were holding us back. Then in episode 85, we talked about labels and constructs, and we really encouraged you to begin to explore what may be holding you back, not only in your business, but also your life. And today we're going to dive deep into liminal space. You know, that space of from where you used to be, who you used to be, to who you are becoming. What I like to say now is unlocking. So, Tamara, thank you for coming back, and I'm going to read your bio one more time, but I wanted to say, hey.
Hey.
So, if you are not familiar with Tamara Powell is a licensed therapist, university psychology instructor, and an empowerment coach who believes life should be lived as a journey that is, quote, anything but ordinary. Her work is specialized to help individuals break free from toxic cycles of distress, dysfunction, and dissatisfaction with life that is created when trying to live according to someone else's rules. And only by living what she calls radical autonomy, one can obtain soul-nourishing relationships and a sense of true life purpose and inner peace. So, yay, I cannot wait to dive into this next topic, Tamara.
Me either. I'm excited. Let's do it.
All right. So we talked last time really about all those constructs and labels that we can identify with, over-identify with, get stuck in, and not create what we're really wanting in our life. And today we want to go into when we start to break through, unlock those belief systems, how it can get one, kind of hard, sometimes messy, but how it's so needed that we need the space in between to be able to do this. And some people I know they call it liminal space. Some people call it seasons of life, and we all have them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really allowing ourselves to go into this.
Absolutely. I think that transitional space for a woman or man is so important, and it's not easy. Nobody ever wants to get there. We want what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Don't make me sit in that doorway threshold for too long.
Well, and my question was going to be to you and answering, why is this space important?
That's where all the magic happens.
Right?
It's that razor's edge point that you're like, oh, it's right before your tattoo's about to be finished. That they have to do that extra highlighting. Don't run from the white highlights. You need them.
Well,
but it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I just loved how you phrase that, though. It really is where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
That when you and I've talked about shadow work before, too, and how we like to say it's like when you go there, it's being able to see those parts that you may have either disowned or you didn't want to look at, but bringing forward that it's like, oh, that's where she was hiding, that part of me. And
Yes.
being able to say it's okay, bring it out into the light and actually, go in it and look at it and give yourself truly, it's that permission, right, to get
Mhm.
uncomfortable. I find it fascinating how many people really don't want to step into that discomfort, to that unknown.
Mhm.
And yet, like we were saying, it's like they really want what's on the other side of that.
Yeah, and I gotta blame society and our poor parents for a lot of that. Just gonna throw them right under the bus from the get-go because, I mean, it's not really their fault because nobody taught them either, who never taught their grandparents. But nobody sits down with us in like first or second grade unless you're one of those rare people and that may have had it in a teacher. In which case, rock on! I'm so happy for you. But that's not the
Mhm.
case for the rest of us.
Mhm.
Where they sit down and they let us be uncomfortable and walk us through it. Nobody walked us through it. How
Yeah.
are we supposed to know at 30, 40, 50
Yep.
what to
Exactly.
do when you suddenly want to make a leap?
Mm-hmm. Because it's like,
Nope.
oh no, 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 I don't want them to be in pain. Oh no, 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 no. We get through this really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when those tears come up, I hear this so often with my clients are like, oh, I don't like when I'm crying, or I don't like when I get so mad, tears come up. I'm like, yeah, that's your natural response. That's really a good thing. That's
Were
a
you in
great
my last
release.
therapy session with my own therapist, Nicole?
I get it too, right? I can
Mm-hmm.
get uncomfortable when those tears come up, but
Mm-hmm.
we also know that part of being that sensitive too, it's not a bad thing. It's like it's truly a release. That to me is that really where there's a growth edge there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's whether it's releasing something old or there needs to be a boundary set into place because something got trespassed that wasn't okay.
Right. Now, see, here's where I think the visualization of the language of liminal space or seasons of life, etc., is so useful
Mhm.
because coming from, say, a more Celtic path like myself, a
Mhm.
liminal space is really personified in this picture of mist or fog.
Mm.
It's this beautiful place where like water and air come together to create this new element, um, and it's where they will say that the veil is thinnest between you and the magic.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
when you start to see your outer world start to get a little foggy, a little murky, most people start freaking the hell out. But that should be a wake up sign to us going, oh, something magical is about to happen.
I love that imagery. I just got lost
Right?
in it.
Yeah, I love foggy scenes. I am an addict for foggy photography.
Well, and again, that goes back to that, where our society or our parents
Hmm.
really, it's like, oh, hurry up and clear it, blow it away, make it go through. Like, you need to
Hmm.
bust through whatever you're feeling or experiencing right now. And you're saying, no, 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 no. This is where that magic is happening.
Hmm.
You're staying there, not getting stuck there, but giving yourself permission to be in it,
Hmm.
to know that eventually it will clear and you will move to the other side of it.
Yeah, I also think about nature and, motherhood or parenthood in general. So, when you're in one season and every season smells different. So
Hmm.
maybe you're in summer and you smell autumn coming. There's like this new slight chill in the breeze and it smells like wet leaves. I
Hmm.
just, we don't need to get upset about it. Like, oh my God, my beach days are numbered. It is over. That is the time to lean in to the awesome scent of, apple cinnamon's coming, pumpkin
Hmm.
spice for all the basic girls
Hmm.
listening.
Hmm.
It's the difference between a mother who is noticing that her baby now looks like a toddler and she's mourning it
Hmm.
rather than getting excited about what's about to happen for her. Your kid's not going to be able to walk into the other room without sitting there crying for you.
Right.
And it's okay. I'm not saying don't mourn what you're going through, but let it be more of that melancholy, awesome, excited, sentimental, sappy morning.
Yeah.
Look at the stage you just came out of. Hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a beautiful way to describe that too, because that's another thing, right? Either there's the fear of, oh, I'm changing and I don't want to go there because I don't know who I'm going to become. I don't know how people are going to respond to this. It's like they're going to respond however they need to respond. That's their business, not yours.
Ooh,
But also
say it.
But like what you're saying though, it's also letting yourself just feel the sadness the morning of that was that first part where you were out of your journey. And now you're just in a truly different space. And that it's truly okay. Like even our businesses, right? We'll watch them grow from like infancy to toddlers to adolescence and to like, okay, now they're mature. But each one of those, it's its own like, oh man, that was challenging for me. Why was that challenging? Oh, I did this instead of that. And oh, but I learned on that. Oh, well, I can grieve that part and forgive myself if I mucked up.
Yep.
Because you know what? It's like, we're going to do that. You're going to do that in parenting. You're going to do that in relationships, but that's how you grow and that's how you change. If you want to stay stuck in the bubble, it's going to be a pretty small life.
I just picture those women who are clearly much older than their Forever 21 clothing. And it's like, everyone knows you're not fooling anyone. And I'm not at all trying to shame women that truly rock it. That's fine. But you know what I mean? Like the 80s were now 40 years ago, boo. You can let the blue eyeshadow go.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I have that anymore. Mine was purple. But
you don't need to exactly move a little bit with the times. Don't try to hold on to it, because then I think you miss out on the beauty of the aging gracefully into the next space, you know?
Well, that's really what we're talking about too, is staying present. So like the example you gave with the fall is coming, I could totally like fast forward it. And I talk sometimes with my clients, Adam Sandler, his movie Flick. But it's like, he fast forwarded through so much of his life. Like, I got to hurry up and get there. And it's like, no. If I'm already wishing away my beach days because I know fall is coming, I've now just missed part of my life. And it's like, oh, I know it's coming. This is beautiful. And I'll be lucky to still be alive, right? So that's the other thing. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. So if we're starting to wish things away, then we really do miss out on where we are now and what we're experiencing now. Yeah. And I think part of this too is you and I've talked about, in our own morning routines, is the power of silence and allowing ourselves to quiet our minds. And I don't think we can overstate that enough of how important silence is in somebody's life, or can be.
I was just flashing back to, part of me was like, stay silent. No, part of me was flashing back to grad school and how often I would initially get in trouble on those recorded sessions for not allowing a client long enough to process, because if they were uncomfortable, I instantly wanted to help relieve their discomfort. And it's fascinating to picture that happening internally within ourselves. Part of you is trying to lean into the next space and grow. And then you've got your subconscious that's like, no, girl, you're fine. Eat a cupcake, watch some TV, move on. Don't sit in this discomfort and silence.
It was, that's funny because I know for me, when this was recorded, it was there was the weekend I had, and I had space in it. And I was like, I really like quiet. I like space. But this weekend I was struggling with that space. And it was just like, what is this about? So I was trying to get curious with it. And it's like, yeah, well, you need to do something. And I was like, oh, here comes that old story, right? That I need to be busy. I'm like, but I don't need to be busy. I like my quiet time. No, we can't do quiet. We can't do nothing. We've got to do something. And this ongoing chatter was so annoying after a while. And it's like, and I'm going to be anyways.
And if that's you listening, you resonate with that, go back to our last podcast session. Episode, what was it, 81? Because there's some good resources for that.
Right. So it was, it's fascinating. But I think so much too, in our country here in the US, there really is a huge core message of you need to do more than be. And it's the constant moving, juggling, hustling, whatever word you want to use. Where I think it makes it really, there's that disconnect, which we did talk about as well, that cognitive dissonance in between, like, but I want to actually be and gain a deeper understanding of myself, but it goes against the norm. That's not okay.
No, I mean, especially here in America, we have a whole system that is founded upon that, predicated upon that notion. More, 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 to the point where even macroeconomics is saying, excuse me, eventually it's going to have to plateau or have a dip. You can't always be in growth mode.
Right. And that's really what we're talking about, right? Is
Mhm.
that there's a season that get into the mist and allow yourself, like, do the checking in. What is working in my life, both in my business and my personal life? What isn't? What do I need to let go of? All of those things. It's creating that space if need be. It's creating the silence to get curious and allow whatever needs to bubble up and get
Yeah.
yeah, I think that discomfort, if we look at it as an enemy, then that's us pushing it away over and over and over, versus let the discomfort be a blanket for a moment.
There's a reason we call them growing pains. My
Mhm.
teenagers can tell you right now, every time they go through a growth spurt, it hurts sometimes.
Right.
But
Right.
what's the other option? To stay a midget forever? All
Right.
their friends are going to be. So I feel bad. My youngest is 14, and in her social circle, most everyone has hit their next growth spurt, right? Prepping for high school. They're in 8th grade.
Uh-huh.
There's like one or two little people in her little social circle that I just, every time I
Yeah.
see them, I'm like, oh, hopefully yours comes soon, because it's very noticeable. And I think that's true for us in businesses too. You can smell it off of someone when they are energetically pushing away their next growth spurt.
Mhm. Yep.
Don't do it.
Well, yeah, because I think that's where we go back to. It's like, get again curious of what are you telling yourself right now of
Hmm.
why you need to push it away, and what is it you're actually trying to avoid.
Yeah, one of my favorite books is by Oprah's most favorite guest, Dr. Tara Trent. And she was a woman who grew up in Africa, right? And was a
Mhm.
child bride and beaten, abused, and had 4 babies by age 18
Mhm.
and lost one along the way. But so she wrote this great book that I'll have to plug in the show notes because I don't remember the title of it right now.
Mhm.
Um, but the point I'm getting to is she has this awesome question in the beginning of her book of, what does your soul hunger for?
Oh, wow.
And I think that's where those misty liminal spaces are. It is our soul getting hungry, and the hunger pangs are starting to hit, and it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But you got to be careful that you don't dismiss it. And so she says it another way: what breaks your heart? Like, there are
Wow.
people right now, yeah, who are working in dead end jobs or who are new entrepreneurs who know that there's this next level for them. But if you're not willing to be uncomfortable for a hot second, you're not going to get to that thing that's really going to nourish your great hunger.
And I was thinking as you were saying that, I can't remember. I know there's a couple other authors who say it slightly different.
Mhm.
It's the same message as we get older, and you and I talk about being in midlife, right? It's like
Mhm.
life is literally halfway through.
Yep.
And when we're not listening to our soul, oh, wow. I think that creates its own discomfort because it's like, to me, it's heavy. It's weighing it
Yes,
down.
very much so.
And the author said something very similar to what you were just talking about. It's we can ignore it for years, decades, but it keeps coming back, keeps coming back. And I think it gets louder, right?
Mhm.
Because you start to see we're like, wow, this relationship really isn't working anymore. Or I no longer feel good in my own body because I'm just not even nourishing it. I'm not taking care of it. Or my business is there, but it's struggling because I'm so trying to turn the opposite way versus lean into, like you said, for that hot second, that discomfort to actually follow what may just bring the flow and the ease that I've been saying I want, yet I've been the only one that got in the way.
Who? That's a tweetable moment.
Yeah.
So I've been saying I want, but I'm the only one standing in my way.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Well, I know one of these things I put a question for us to kind of answer too is why does this liminal space really create such fear for so many women that you and I work with? And I know for some of my clients, one of the biggest things, because we talk quite a bit about people pleasing and perfectionism and how that really gets in the way. And I fully understand that, right? I'm a recovering one
Mhm.
myself, but it's more of the fear of what others first, fears of what other people are going to think of them as they change. That's been one of the core things I've heard from so many people I've surveyed, talked with, counseled with, coached with. Like, what are these other people going to think? The other one is the fear of, well, I don't know who I'm going to be. I've never been in that space where I just really let go of all these limitations that I put on myself. And I'm like, isn't that exciting?
I was just saying, I must be a little broken because that just smells like fun.
Right?
Did I miss that one?
Yeah. And that's just so funny because my clients look at me like, I've got some like 5 eyes on my head or something when I say these things, like something must be really off with Nicole. But like you, it's like, isn't that exciting? It sounds like fun because this is the space. Again, the fog is lifting, the veil is lifting. So much about opportunities in that unknown, and unknown doesn't need to be scary. We make it scary by what we tell ourselves.
It's a false fear.
Yeah.
It's really it's not that you're afraid of who you're becoming. It's the ego afraid of dying. It's part of our, operant conditioning, the punishments and rewards from culture around us that says, we like you like this. And you're willing to sacrifice everything to try and please people, but that's like quicksand. Because if I please this one, I'm not going to please that one. And I'm not going to please that one. Yeah. Oh my God, you were with me on that. I was with you on that first fear. Now the second one, I'm like, that's an illusion, though. It's when the veil lifts, you get to see what was there all along. That goes back to our last podcast episode of what are you beyond this body with its, thought forms and emotions, which are really just neurotransmitters running through you.
Break it down, will you?
Right? Not sorry to make it a little unsexy, although I think chemistry is sexy. It's what was left behind all of that. It's that essence, that signature frequency that is just yours. Don't you want to get to know that? Why wouldn't you?
Good. Sorry, I lost like, this is just beautiful.
It is. It is fucking beautiful. Yeah. Will you just look at it? Go look at it.
It is so fascinating though, right? That how powerful, like we talked in the last episode, those labels and constructs can be.
Yes.
That keep that ego like this is it. And I get for those who've been through some traumatic things, like it's almost like there's still that ego wants you to stay stuck and you've got to be on the lookout all the time and you've got to be something that you're not supposed to be because you could be in danger. It's like, no, it's not true.
Well, I've actually found that clinically and personally that the higher the trauma, the more unsafe you are if you're not willing to grow beyond the label.
Correct. Absolutely.
The more to be re-traumatized. So your brain's actually lying to you.
Yep, it is.
But we don't have to hate on it. It's doing its best to self-preserve. It's just got some wonky information up there.
Yep, absolutely. No, totally agree with that. That is it. It's like unlearning what did keep you safe in the past. That it's like it no longer serves you to where you are today as this adult. And being able to unlock that and retrain it. I call it like the trenching in the brain.
Yeah, there you go.
You got these certain beliefs or thoughts that you've been doing. It's like, it's time to climb out of that trench and repave the path to a different direction. And what we're even talking about too, the ego really does want to keep you playing small. It really does want to keep you, quote, safe, which the mind is beautiful if there's a true threat. That's exactly what it's there for. But the majority of those perceived threats, that's all they are, is perceived. They're not real.
Ding, ding. There's a huge difference between biological fear and psychological fear, and 99.99% of the shit that we get upset about is psychological fear. Yep. It's all perception.
Yeah, it is. And and when you are able to actually, what do I want to say, discern between when the ego is talking and when your soul is talking, wow. I mean, that is powerful.
That's the thing that you and I came here to teach. And that's why people need to stay tuned for the awesomeness that they could be a hold of, because we'll walk you right through it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I know if I'm sitting in meditation and I've got this, oh my gosh, just chatter going on in my head. I'm like, seriously, please be quiet so that I can get centered and I can drop into my body. And then eventually I will get there. But when soul talks, man, it's those instant downloads. It's the instant message, the instant vision of what's to come or what I could actually be, do, have.
Yes.
And it's just like, yeah, if I was still in my own little head, I wouldn't even allow that stuff to come in because my ego's like, nope, we're not going to go there. We like this. It's just safe. It's like, it is not safe. It's constraining.
It is. It hurts.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. When you finally get to the place where it hurts more to stay where you're at versus making the leap, you'll change.
Yeah.
But soul to me feels like home.
Yes.
And that's how I remind people of how will you know? Because it's just going to be like, there I am. Hello.
Yeah. That's a beautiful way of putting it. Yeah. I think for me, it's like, it's like I envision like dropping into my heart of my hearts. And it's so warm and safe and expansive at the same time. It's just like, the outside body literally relaxes.
Oh, it does, because that's the thing that should be controlling us the majority of the day. Most of all, just have it backwards. We put the soul, the conscious awareness part of us back in the closet, and we allow the brain, which is really like artificial intelligence, to run the day. No wonder it feels weird. So, of course, when soul steps back up to the control panel, everything relaxes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, finally. And you and I know this from our own, personal experiences too, that when we actually are in tune and aligned with soul, literally life is easier. It just truly is. Whether it's in your personal life with your relationships or your business life with your professional relationships or your business in general, it's just like, wow, things just flow easier, fall into place easier.
And it's scientific. I mean, it sounds like woo, but it's not. That's the soul is connected to the space of all that is. It's universal intelligence. And so when you're there, then you're connected to everything around you. Of course, it's going to happen easier. And you're going to go, how did that happen? Synchronicity.
Right. So I was going to say, so those 5 funnels that I have that I think is not really working and it's really, quote, hard for me to do. And this, when I step back and go, let's try this thing over here because that really feels in alignment with me. All of a sudden, oh, that person liked it. I'm getting feedback on it. This person signed up for it. It's like, oh, okay. That was easy.
Yeah. Turns out when you're just yourself, people actually like you. When it's not artificial intelligence running the...
I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I talk often with my clients, I know you have as well with some of yours too, about wearing those masks. Right? And then when we do that, it's like, how many layers of mask do I have on versus allowing myself to be more of truly me? And just the heaviness that can bring on.
Oh my God. The example I use for people all the time is my mask of professionalism. I mean, your listeners can already tell I'm not the buttoned up therapist. And so big shocker. I know. What you see is what you get. So if I try, though, to not let it be what you see is what you get, and I just try to be a therapist the way that my sister or someone else would do it, I screw it up every time. My whole body gets constricted. I'm not able to pay attention as much because I'm not present in the moment because I'm not operating from soul. I'm trying to manage my clients' reactions and mine at the same time. That's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
And so the mask of professionalism doesn't help me. And so think about that. It's a lose-lose situation. Now I'm not able to help them get the results that they want. So what did that quote-unquote professionalism get us? Nowhere.
Right. Well, that goes back to, you made me think of something too, that if I'm trying to guess what the person's going to say, I'm no longer in the present moment. I'm trying I've got to hurry up and take care of all their needs before I actually really know what their needs are because I think I know them better than they actually know themselves. And again, it's like trying to contain a perceived safety thing, but it takes us both out of that moment. And then it just impacts the relationship in a negative way.
Yeah, no. And if those people did want the other style, then they will go and find it and they won't be upset about it because I've not pretended to be anything that I'm not.
Right.
And I will help them find another person.
Right.
But the ones that are a good fit for me, they'll say it over and over. I am so relieved that you sit barefoot, cross-legged sometimes, and you drop an F-bomb here or there because my preferred clients tend to be nonconformists. Right. And then they get the better results because now they're relaxed and their soul comes to the page rather than all their other masks.
Yep. Well, and you create the safe container, right,
Mm-hmm.
to allow the mask to come off.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing. Whether it's a clinical client or it's a coaching client, they're talking about business and they want to go further in their, even
Mm-hmm.
their personal life. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. It's like, oh, there, your shoulders dropped. Oh, I think you actually dropped into your body. Oh my gosh, there's the connection. And they're like, yeah, I'm feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not trying to outthink everything or put on this face that I need to be something that you like in order for me to get what I need. It's like, no, that's the opposite of what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. If you're trying to
Powerful.
perform, yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not going to work. Not going to work at all. Good stuff. Well, okay. Let me back this up a second. So we're kind of talking big picture. If we drop it down into, as you like to remind me, I like the
Mm-hmm.
details of some of
You
these
do.
things. Give me some practical tips on what would be some ways for, like, what have you talked with your clients or what has worked for you in getting more comfortable with that space in between, with the silence? What are some of the things that work for you?
It's going to sound funny perhaps, but I like journaling or taking notice of every day how many days old I am.
That's right.
So it's something I stole from Buddhist psychology, but there's this notion in much of the world's cultures outside of the United States that we need to pay attention to this present moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get comfortable with discomfort by making it less scary. And one of the ways of doing that is realizing the impermanence of it all. This too shall pass, whether it's happy or sad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important to pay attention to. So if most people are given less than 28,000 days, that's 80 years old, I believe. My math's not too terrible. Sometimes it is. I'm on day 14,800 and something. That lets me bring it down into this present moment. What am I going to do today that's going to light my soul up? Or what am I going to release today that I'm stressing over that I know I don't need to be?
I
It
love
can
that.
be something huge, but it's just a super practical task of, especially for us anxious, overwhelmed types.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trying to get through the whole year. You're getting through today. We're only on day 14,859.
Exactly. That just really hit a nerve with me because I'm like, oh, I'm not trying to get through the whole year right now.
No, just today. So I'm not a long journaler. I'm like a bullet point journaler. So I'll just put a couple things down. What am I looking at today? That's like one of my favorite go-tos. The other one is going to sound a little more woo, but I like to look at life as this, whether you are a Christian or an atheist, doesn't matter, as this is, today's day 14,000 of my adventure here on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I came here for an adventure. Picture standing in line at Disney World, and you're on day 3 of your 5-day vacation. You don't want the whole vacation to rush you by, whether it's in stress or in pleasure.
Right.
So what am I doing to make this adventure that this meat suit is having worth it? If I am a people pleaser and I know that I would really rather be divorced right now and living in Costa Rica, I am wasting this incarnation if I choose to stay. So it helps me look at the bright side, the freedom on the other side of this discomfort.
That was so powerful. And I get where that, like, I'm sure some of the listeners went, oh, that fear wanted to bubble up, which again, ego, right? It was like, you can't do that. Just because you were thinking of divorce or leaving that person or changing jobs or doing this. Oh my gosh. It's like, yeah, you can.
Well, I mean, you don't have to, but then your rest of your 28,000 days are going to be spent exactly where you're at.
Right, exactly.
So if nothing changes, that's another awesome life hack. If nothing changes, how would you live? Would you be happy with what you're at right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or no?
Right.
And then if people are really, really stuck, I give them the awesome other little life hack of live 24 hours as if you've made the decision one way or the other. And I want you to do both. So you can start out I'm going to live the next day as if I choose to stay in this dead-end job. And then just watch the biofeedback your brain and body give you.
I can feel myself like squeezed in going, oh my gosh.
And then you do the next day. You want to know how this is the right decision for you? Which one felt better?
Yeah.
You don't have to know how you're going to get it done. Just live the next 24 hours as if you've already made the decision to do the thing that seems to be scaring the piss out of you.
Right.
Now watch the biofeedback.
Beautiful.
How about you? What you got?
Well, I'm still like stuck. I'm like, wow, that's just beautiful example. Guys.
Thank you for coming to my interpretive dance.
Yeah. So for me, I know one thing that helps me almost every single time to calm my own butt down when I need it to is to be out in nature. I don't care if I go take a walk in the woods, which is one of my favorite places. Being in the mountains is another favorite place. I live in flatland right now, so there's not a lot of mountains there. But just being out there, and you and I know that when you're walking out in nature, you can do it's a walking meditation, which instead of judging, oh my gosh, what are those birds doing? Why is that car going by? Da, 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 which all that chatter is going on. It's observing it. And when I get to that place of really observing my surroundings, observing how my body is feeling in that moment, and I can feel the wind on my face or the sun. We actually have sun for 2 days in a row. It's so exciting. All those little things allow the true me to bubble up more, that creativity to bubble up more. I can problem solve. I can do these things because I've given myself permission to get quiet and just to be in the moment. And doesn't mean I need to do anything with those things that are bubbling up. But if you really feel called for it, sometimes it's like, make sure you have a journal with you to sit down for a second and write those things down.
It's much easier when you're out in nature to allow the internal mind to get quiet, isn't it?
It is. It is.
I talk about that a lot, the external air pollution, which is just, it's noise. You've got white noise from the television and from the cars. And it's much easier to hear yourself, meaning the real you, when you're out, just you and the trees and the dirt or the mountains, or in our case, the beach.
Yep. I think another thing that I like to do, and what I, will tell clients, sometimes it's watching something that's inspirational and allowing yourself just to kind of sit in that space. Or I like to sometimes go back and reread certain chapters or questions from somebody that I'm an author that I'm really enjoying. And then I pause and I give myself permission to also then okay, let's sit with that question for the moment. Let's journal about that. What comes up? Again, what am I holding on to? What do I need to release? Is there a part of me that needs to have a little more self-compassion? Do I need to forgive myself for something? Do I need to forgive somebody else for something so that I can keep moving forward in my path and not get stuck on somebody else's?
Yes.
Part of this too, like you and I, in our training that we went through to become therapists, I think there was so much practice in getting the comfortable. I know as a kid, I was totally good with quiet. I mean, I could play for hours by myself. I'd be climbing trees. I'd be outside, I'd be playing with my Barbie dolls, whatever. I didn't need anybody to actually entertain me. But as I grew up, there was more like, you need to engage more. You need to do this. So for me, when my clients get uncomfortable with that space, it's like, I can just sit there easy with it and they can't. And then we explore what comes up for them type of thing. But
yeah,
I think it is getting curious. It's like, what's the story behind why silence is uncomfortable? And I know for some of my clients, they've told me because I get to hear more of me, and that scares me.
And I would say that's an illusion. It's not you that you're afraid of.
Yes. And so whether it's journaling, it's meditation, it's taking walks in nature, it's being out on the beach, all of these things, it's like, do something. I'm going to say, do something where you can be.
Go be something while not doing. Yes.
Yeah. Like, just allow yourself, start it out for maybe it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then build upon that. And you'll see that nothing bad is happening to you in that space.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's kind of like building the muscle of the quiet. That it's like, oh, it's okay for me to do this. It's like, yeah, the world's not imploding because of it. Nobody's dying because you're allowing yourself to be in that space.
Right. That's where the magic happens.
Seriously, I'm going to keep coming back to that phrase too. It's like, that is where the magic happens. So Tamara, I'm curious. I know the last episode, I shared a story of one of my clients kind of shedding through or unlocking some of those beliefs that were holding her back. And I'm curious, do you have something or an example that you could share with our listeners about being in that liminal space, going through the mist and coming out on the other side?
I think there are so many, so I'm going to condense it into one where I say that, living as someone who believes firmly in radical autonomy and not ever feeling like the meek one in the room, as you've heard me talk about on previous episodes, or the quote unquote professional one, and yet having a passion for what I knew was right for me or for the world around me, for my field of psychology. I grew up in the Jesus tradition, as I like to call it. And so having the label of quote unquote Christian and heterosexual and therapist really all came into this trifecta of cluster effery several years into my practice. Oh, and okay, I grew up with people, my parents are still together. My grandparents were still together. So divorce was something that happened on the fringes of our society. And all of these things created stigmas, these barriers that I felt like I kept pushing up against, like these barbs that were sticking out every time I wanted to grow and expand. My soul was so much bigger than this container that I had been put in. And so by the time I started my practice, I knew I wasn't straight. I knew that Christianity was not the only box for me, that I was definitely more of an omnist. I knew that my practice needed to reflect these things. Oh, and I've been twice divorced. So, the stories I tell myself of, oh my God, you can't talk to people about relationships, really held me back. And it took me sitting with a number of mentors and therapists in my own journal and all the tools we've talked about, a hell of a lot of crying and snotting and sitting in discomfort and silence to go, this is not authentic. And if I do not allow myself to embrace this liminal space, to look at the magic within, and it was not an overnight process. For me, it's been a stage of evolution, but each season, I think, lasted actually, ironically, as long as a season typically lasts, probably about 90 days, 3 or 4 months, and realized that each label, one at a time, had to go. And there were ways that I could allow that to be reflected in my business that felt authentic to me. It wasn't going on to social media and bleeding all over the page what was happening internally, but it was starting to market and talk about subjects that were in alignment with me.
Yeah.
And every time that I've been able to do that, my bottom line actually grew as well. So after time, it starts to get a little easier because you can see it coming. You can almost smell it coming up. We're about to go through another season of change. And, desensitization happens. It's less scary every time because I get to remember, oh, remember last time we did that? We actually made 10,000.
Right.
Maybe we shouldn't, push this one off as long as we did the last time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. And I love that you're just naming it, that it's not like this lasted for years and years and years, but we're all evolving. We're all consistently changing. I mean, we know change is the constant. And just allowing yourself to move through it and go like, yeah, those may have felt like barbs in the past, but they were keeping me playing a character that wasn't me.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so being a lot more in alignment with you, again, it's showing that to your clients because it's like you're showing up, and it takes away so much of the stigma too in any topics that we talk about, like, oh, we can't talk about mental health. Oh, no, shh, don't talk about that because, that's not okay. And it's like, what? But even other topics that it's like, oh, you can't talk about suicide. You can't talk about trauma. You can't talk about death. You can't talk about this. You can't. It's like, what are we allowed to talk about? That it's sunny outside.
Yeah.
It's like,
you can have cognitive behavioral therapy, Nicole. That's what you can talk about.
Right. And I talk about that at some length, but it's also blending in so many of these other practices too. So it's a holistic approach because it's like you're more than just your head. So yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So ladies, if this is seriously resonating with you, like you have gotten something from our different episodes that we're talking about, that we're diving below these labels, we're diving below what is keeping you held stuck in your business, in your life, then we're really going to encourage you, because there's only a few more days left that the cart is going to be open, to check out our coaching program, which is called steppingintosoul.com. You can go out there and you can see what we're going to offer, how long it's going to be. All the details are on there, but we really encourage you that if this is resonating with you, check it out.
Can't wait to see you there.
Well, Tamara, I just want to say thank you again for being on, and I will have all her information in the show notes as well, ladies. Thank you for listening. And if you're a female entrepreneur wanting to gain more confidence in speaking up for yourself, being able to respond versus react to events in your life, and live a life that is aligned with you, head over to steppingintosoul.com to sign up for our new mastermind starting April 5th.